A momentous occasion in Bathurst's 200 years history took place on the 7th of May. The much anticipated Macquarie's flagstaff was reinstated in its correct place in Bicentenary Park.
And may I also welcome here this morning our many other distinguished guests, community and civic leaders, descendants of the founders and pioneers of Bathurst, and all of you, my fellow citizens of the Bathurst region, and most particularly of all, members of the Wiradjuri people, the original owners and custodians of this land, who will be sharing as equals the proceedings as they unfold this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, at this place, at this hour, on this day, in the year 1815, 200 years ago, the foundation of colonial settlement at Bathurst began, and the foundation of European settlement in inland Australia took place. And so we gather here now, on a day of truly national significance in the history of our country, to reflect upon those historical events of the past, to celebrate the present, and to imagine a future. When Governor Macquarie stood here on the Bathurst Plains at 11 a.m. on Sunday the 7th of May 1815 and announced the site for the future township of Bathurst, he must have been well aware that his actions on that day represented the single most important moment in time in the history of inland Australia. On that day, European colonisation of the inland received its official endorsement. Everything changed. The Wiradjuri people were displaced, and for them, much was lost. But they endured, and after 200 years, there is a sense of renewal and a new awakening taking place in Aboriginal communities across the region, and they look to a much brighter future. The Europeans changed the landscape. With them, the first animals with hard feet, with hooves, ever to walk upon the soils of inland Australia arrived. The penal settlement, which had hugged the coastal areas for nearly 30 years, advanced into the west. Convicts and soldiers came. Farmers and pastoralists came. Modern Australia began to take shape. Long before any of this, though, almost at the very start of a very long sequence of geological events which created the landforms of eastern Australia and determined the tectonic framework of the whole region, upwellings of liquid rock occurred 5 kilometres beneath us. These became the granite rocks of Bathurst, and their presence caused the Great Basin in which Bathurst sits. Much later, above all of this, volcanoes spewed forth lava, forming basalt, and the hills around us were formed. And then a great wide river flowed across the top, gradually carving out the Bathurst Plains. Then the land became still, and into this landscape came the Aborigines, the ancestors of the Wiradjuri people. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. Let us take you back now through the mists of time to the beginning, to an ancient Australia, to a time of creation. The great rainbow serpent moved over the land, carving out the rivers and forming the valleys across the inland into which the Wiradjuri people would later come. When Biome's great boomerang cleared the plains of trees, he left behind a wide, open, grassy place. This place, these plains, ready for the arrival of the Wiradjuris. And so they came. And they stayed. And after an incredible 40,000 years, on the 10th of December 1813, everything changed again. 6 different men rode and walked along the banks of Wombool. The surveyors had arrived. Led by George Evans, the survey party mapped the river during that summer, naming it Macquarie, and the whole area, the Bathurst Plains.
This is fine country indeed. The river will be an ideal water source. The soil is good, and the whole plains is heaving with wildlife. Grazing stock could be pastured here for years to come. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Ty, I need you to make one final measurement with that survey chain. As for the rest of you men, Burns, Coogan, Grover, make camp somewhere near here. But first, I want all you men to witness my naming of these plains, the Bathurst Plains, after our esteemed Colonial Secretary, as Governor Macquarie has instructed me to name something important after him.
What shall we name the river, Mr. Evans?
The river We will call it the Macquarie River.
And so, with the passing of the mountains, the way was open for the exploration and settlement of eastern Australia and the development of large-scale primary industry, activities that were the main thrust of Australian expansion for the next 50 years. Next came the road builders. Governor Macquarie, on hearing all the good news from Evans about the interior, engaged William Cox to put together a road building team and construct a road from Emu Ford on the Nepean River to Bathurst Plains, where he was also to establish a depot. The project commenced on the 18th of July 1814, took 7 months to complete, and was achieved, according to Cox's journal, on the 21st of January 1815. A depot was established at the terminus of the road, and a storehouse was constructed there.
Face. Order. Up.
Ansell was responsible for choosing the exact spot for the construction of Macquarie's camp. He chose the site for the Governor's marquee, and in front of it, the exact site for a flagstaff. He described this location, calling it a delightful spot. When all was in order, Ansell, Cox and Evans rode out from the Bathurst depot to greet Macquarie's entourage as it came onto the Bathurst Plains. And so now Macquarie arrived to see for himself this new country. Macquarie's entourage rode into the Bathurst depot at 1:30 p.m. on Thursday the 4th of May to loud cheering from the men gathered there and a formal turnout by the military guard. He was enraptured by the district from the moment he saw it. On the morning of Sunday the 7th of May, the whole population assembled beside the flagpole to hear the Governor proclaim the site for the future town of Bathurst. Ansell described it. It was a thick, foggy morning, which soon cleared away as the sun got a little power. A little after breakfast assembled the whole of our inhabitants, civic, naval and military, and the British flag was displayed for the first time in this new country. Sergeant Whalen brought his men up into line. The drum began to roll. Whalen called for the raising of the Union flag. He called for three volleys to be fired.
Guard, shoulder up. Guard, general salute. 3 volleys. Load. Fire! Reload!
Mr. Ansell, can you see to it that this whole assembled company here is given a measure of wine or rum so that we may drink a bumper to the King's health and for the success to the town of Bathurst? I have this morning fixed on a site suitable for the erection of a town in some future period, to which I give the name Bathurst, in honour of the present Secretary of State for the Colonies. I note that the situation of the town is elevated sufficiently beyond the reach of any floods which may occur, and is at the same time so near to the river as to derive all the advantages of its clear and beautiful stream. The mechanics and settlers of whatever description who may be hereafter permitted to form permanent residences to themselves at this place will have the highly important advantages of a rich and fertile soil with a beautiful river flowing through it.
It is now, ladies and gentlemen, my very great pleasure to invite the Wiradjuri people of the Bathurst Plains to welcome us to this place to perform a smoking ceremony, a sweeping ceremony and dance, and a welcome to country.
Yeah, so as part of that tradition, it never happened back in that day to welcome strangers to our country. But we stood back because we knew the stories about what was happening on the other side of the mountains. Those stories had been travelled across from the first time they landed back in 1788. So we already had the road going across there. You know, so like I told them, all that do is ask a couple of the diary followers and say, yeah, you go up here, turn left and you see the sign pointing to Bathurst. Highway 32. Yeah, so all the stories already come across about what was going on over there. So our people seen it as a way of, okay, we'll welcome these people in.
Thank you so much, Dinner One. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my very great pleasure now to invite the Governor of New South Wales, His Excellency General the Honourable David Hurley, to address us. Your Excellency.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for a warm, in spirit at least, welcome to Bathurst today, Belinda and I, and we're truly delighted to be here to join in what, given the attendance here today, we all know is such a special day, not only for this city and state, but for our nation. Can I thank Girrawong for his warm welcome, and I also affirm my respects for our ancestors, your ancestors, living custodians and elders past and present. You have looked after this land here magnificently, and you have learnt with us, I think, now to live in partnership for its future care.
So Bathurst holds an important place in Australia's history as the birthplace of regional Australia, our first inland settlement. Governor Lachlan Macquarie was Bathurst's most important forefather. He was a visionary. He had a passion for infrastructure, and he saw the potential of Bathurst not only just for its beauty, but also its strategic location. In Bathurst, he created a regional centre and a gateway for much of the exploration and development that took place in New South Wales.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. What a great pleasure it is for all of us to be able to share our celebration with you also on this day. And I'm sure you'll be very pleased to know, sir, that had Bathurst won its bid to be the federal capital in 1906, your office would have been just up the street, just over there. And these plains would have been a magnificent ornamental lake named after Burley Griffin.